Greetings, Dragon Ball fans, and welcome to part 2 of Flamin' Ice's suggested What If Piccolo Stayed Evil, where we take a look at what might have happened if the reincarnation of the Demon King Piccolo stuck true to his father's path, because of a certain lack of tact on Goku's part. In the first part, Goku stuck his foot firmly in his mouth and said something to the recently defeated Piccolo that just rubbed the guy the wrong way. He was then even more set on ending the man, as his father had been. The appearance of Raditz and his nemesis' own child, Son Gohan, was just the thing he needed to bring about Goku's ultimate demise. Despite their intense and somewhat manipulative training, they remained hidden for most of the Saiyan battle against Nappa and the self-proclaimed Prince of the Saiyans, Vegeta. With Goku's Spirit Bomb being wasted because Krillin was dead, a well-aimed special beam cannon, and a full-power, point-blank Masenko later, both Vegeta and Goku were headed off to the other world as Piccolo laughed at his good fortune. That's 2 deaths now for the guy, so he's never coming back. He's done it. Unfortunately, all was not well with the new King Piccolo's world. Unaware of the Namekians' success, Dr. Gero still built his artificial humans, 17 and 18, and a few years after Chi-Chi and Bulma returned from their failed mission to Namek, as Piccolo announced his own dominance over the Dragon World, a pair of machine constructs threw a massive wrench in his plans. Well, maybe just a hand. Their hands. Through the chest of the would-be king. Having watched the 2 machines mercilessly beat on his master, Nokan, as his master had renamed him, had finally seen the truth of that master's words. Weakness was to be stamped out, and that very same master was weak, as was he. They were nothing but paper tigers before the machine's storm. After gleefully dispatching what was left of his master, the boy, who was once Son Gohan, wanders off, away from the battle, still wounded, and disappears into the rubble of the city that Piccolo had chosen as his home. The artificial humans were far too busy amusing themselves with wanton destruction that they didn't take much notice of a lone, battered-looking scrap of a boy hobbling away. Over the years that followed, little Nokan quickly encountered what little of humanity was left. While they would have rather fancied themselves as a resistance movement, he has other ideas. Despite his age and size, he becomes their boss, and he is as merciless with them as his master was with him. They roam about, careful to avoid the artificial people, and pick the bones of this dying world. Things go well for a time with Nokan's power. When it comes to other humans at least, nothing can stand in their way. But the increasing frequency of scrapes they had with those artificial people result in him being beaten badly on a fairly regular basis. As he lays there recovering, yet again, he can't quite explain it to himself. Despite how cruelly he treats his people, and in spite of how he thinks over and over to himself that he doesn't really care about them, whenever they are in danger, he can only react by diving in. He just can't help but defend these weaklings. Ugh. When a brash but valiant young fighter they meet in Orange City joins their group, being arguably the 2 strongest there, they naturally gravitate towards each other. But she's constantly trying to go that extra step, like she's trying to live up to some half-forgotten ideal. The girl won't talk about her past, but Videl is driven by something, and when her life is threatened, more so years later when she reveals that she is pregnant, the now mostly grown Nokan can't help but go completely berserk. His gang of rebels find him again, as often as not, bruised and beaten, and they nurse him back to health with her by his side, regardless of her own injuries or growing discomfort on top of everything else. It is during one such recovery when the very pregnant Videl mentions that they've made contact with another resistance group. Resistance? No, he'd been sure to quell that notion, but he's too tired to protest, and her hand feels so nice on his. They want to meet, apparently. They have weapons and food. Nokan is not unaware of the eyes of everyone on him. The one constant in their lives is hunger. That feeling again boils up inside him. The need to make them all stronger? No, the need to protect them. He agrees to meet this resistance, but is entirely unprepared for what or who awaits him there. It's her, that woman that kept summoning him. And she stares at him as Videl makes the introductions, newborn girl on hip, and blissfully ignorant that they have met before. While Nokan is very reluctant to accept their help, Chi-Chi, having long been part of what's left of the human resistance, just wants to not only be near her son again, but also be near her grandchild, so she agrees to his demands with little in the way of negotiation. Slowly over the following months, their groups integrate. Videl can certainly see the benefits of combining forces, and Chi-Chi is careful to position herself as close to her Gohan and granddaughter, who in another time might have gone by Pan, but Videl, ever the optimist, had chosen the name Mirai, their future. It's not like the constant presence of that older woman isn't irritating, but slowly Nokan grows accustomed to her being around. She's so familiar, almost comforting, though not in the same way Videl is, and she absolutely dotes on the feisty little Mirai. Videl herself can see some of the tension between these two leaders, and eventually confronts Chi-Chi, unaware that Nokan is listening in through the doorless hovel that they currently call base camp. Chi-Chi eventually tells Videl who she is, and who he is, her son, Gohan, someone she'd thought kidnapped, then dead, then hateful, someone she'd almost given up on these interleaving years, but was so relieved to see not only alive, but thriving. She gives Videl a photo of her, some guy with spiky hair, and a boy that could possibly be her Nokan, clinging to his dad. They looked so happy. That goofy smile on the man's face brings up memories of her own father, when he would play with her, back before that tournament, and the fame, and then all of this. Later that night, she can't help but show it to Nokan while he tries to entertain the rambunctious little girl. He stares at it blankly for a moment before saying that he overheard what the woman had said. He's not sure it's true, but deep down, maybe he feels it, and he can see it in the shape of their daughter's eyes. It is by no means instant, but he slowly comes to accept Chi-Chi as his mother again. She is just thrilled to have him acknowledge it, to actually say it out loud. The reduction in angry glares cast her way is also quite a relief, I'm sure. As the months tick past and little Mirai starts ruling more of what little time is not spent scrounging for food and materials, the machines continue to attack, and seeing both his mother and his woman batted aside, Nokan's rage erupts with increasing intensity, often doing more structural damage than 17 and 18. It's never enough, though, even with the androids knowing exactly what buttons to push to get their favorite toy to go over the edge. The relentless machines do this for years, since it's pretty much the only fun thing they have left. The resistance group finds Nokan, again, beaten almost to death, and on one such recovery op, Chi-Chi is on hand to recover him, and as she picks him up, he finally hugs her back, weakly but fully. A few years of this constant harassment later, when the androids find themselves just totally bored, they attack again with a new plan in mind. They want to see just how far they can push that rage, and to do so they need to not only threaten the boy's loved ones, but take things all the way. By the time Nokan arrives on the scene, 17 and 18 are standing over the broken bodies of not just his Videl, but also his mother. They are looking at a weathered and now blood-stained picture, laughing about how it all makes sense. He's Son Goku's kid. The file says, Son Gohan. And I'm sure Super Saiyan is cool and all, but while he proves much more entertaining this time, just as they'd hoped, and he even manages to retrieve most of that precious photograph, he still gets his butt handed to him, along with several broken steel girders, and maybe a building for extra measure. Haha, let's see him dig his way out of that. He lays there under the rubble for what feels like hours before the sound of a crying child reaches his ears. He barely has the strength to dig his way out, but he has to find the girl. When he does find her, he can only stare for a moment at the child. The massive block of concrete atop her jitters and bounces slightly, causing dust to fill the air and what's left of the building to creak and shudder as she cries and beats at the block with her young hands, in quite the opposite of an impotent rage. He carefully lifts the beam, and Mirai stops crying to look at him. She smiles and scrambles out to grasp at his outstretched hand, and promptly wraps herself around his leg. They make their way out of the building, and finally into the tunnels that various groups use for travel and supply storage. There, Gohan can finally collapse to the ground and pass out, with little Mirai, the only thing left in this world that matters to him, blissfully snoring away at his chest, as only a child can. When Gohan awakes, yes, he knows his name is Gohan now, he is in what's left of that Bulma woman's home, Capsule Corp. Said tired old woman is there to greet him, but he looks around for a moment first to find Mirai, who is happily playing in the corner. Though he only knows the old woman by name and reputation, they had actually met once, briefly, when his dad had visited Master Roshi's island some 18 years ago. God, she misses that old pervert. She'd almost be happy to let him have his damn puff-puffs if he was around to help her with her project. Project? What exactly is she working on? Something to defeat those monsters? Defeat? Oh no, kiddo, not defeat. With any luck, erase from existence. Wipe them away before they ever appear. And to do that, they need Gohan's dad. Bulma goes on to lament about the past, how she'd met Son Goku, and all the crazy adventures that they'd been on. Eventually, she gets to how he had defeated the evil King Piccolo, who had threatened the world. At least, he thought he had. If only they had kept things in the arena. Gohan can see the connection now, that his old master Piccolo had taken him and used him as a tool for revenge against the enemy he couldn't defeat himself. Piccolo had been weak all along, but worse, he had been short-sighted. So Gohan sets about helping Bulma build her time machine, on one condition. As the son of the famed Son Goku, he, Gohan, would be the one to travel back with his daughter. There's no way he can risk her vanishing to a new future. And besides, he would surely be able to handle those Saiyans, so the girl won't be in any danger. To himself he thinks that he would be able to handle Piccolo too, though the mere thought of the man fills him with apprehension. Unfortunately, building the time machine is a long and grueling process, even with first Gohan, and then, when she's old enough, Mirai's help as well. The months tick past as they work away, turning into years. During this time, Gohan, having seen his daughter's strength and wanting to indulge her desire to help and to fight for what she was named after, he starts training her the only way he knows how. His training isn't cruel, but it is harsh, and Mirai's power grows very fast. By the time she is 15 and the time machine is reaching its completion, he has even seen hints of the power that he had felt himself, watching his mother and de facto wife die. Her hair often flickers as they spar, and the blows she delivers sends him flying more often than not. So he, in turn, digs into that power and starts sparring with her while in that strange, golden-haired form. As they marvel at the completed time machine that will deliver them from the death and mayhem of the artificial humans, both Gohan and Mirai suddenly look away, off towards a new eruption of power. For a moment, Gohan feels happy. He can sense powers that tickle at the edge of familiarity, that are deep in his memories. Then he feels what could only be Piccolo, that long-dead master that still torments him at night. But they are all so much stronger than before. Has someone used Dragonballs? Where would they have got them from? Were there more Namekians that had fled somehow as Frieza destroyed their world? He tells Bulma and Mirai to finish prepping the time machine, just in case, and he heads off to investigate these possible allies. Mirai watches him go, but unfettered by the memories associated with those powers, she can feel something deeper, underneath it all. A deep-seated lust for power and domination. She tells Bulma that she needs to help her dad, who's not thinking clearly, and she flies off after him. As Mirai arrives, she sees a strange, patchy-colored-looking man, laughing as he beats relentlessly on her dad. She dives in to help, but even with her hair flickering to golden, she gets backhanded away and told to wait her turn. Soon it'll be everyone's turn. When he's done with this insect, he's going to blow up the planet. Her dad yells at her to go, get to Bulma, and do what they talked about. Save herself at least. She can hear the desperation in his voice and see the look of finality in his eye. She was his future, and that future was needed now, in the past. So go, child, do what he could not. When she gets back to what's left of Capsule Corp, the ship is ready to go. Bulma's cheerful expression turns to confusion when she sees that Mirai is alone, and then, seeing the look on the girl's face, a feeling of dread comes over her. Without a word, though, Mirai flies down and into the ship, where she pushes buttons and pulls levers. She starts to wave and smile sadly at the woman as she feels her dad's life force flicker and vanish. Her hands move over the controls to program in her destination. Bulma's target of November 3rd, 762, the day of the Saiyan's arrival and Son Goku's ultimate demise, is not her destination. and as the time machine flickers and vanishes, we will bring Part 2 to a close. This future's Pan, called Mirai here by the once eternally optimistic Videl, has gone back, but to when did she go? The fight with the Saiyans is not her target. What will she find in the past? Will she be able to change things for the better, or will her meddlings cause more problems for them down the line? How will future Bulma fare with that nasty bug-like man running amok, or will the world end when he gets bored and blows it all up? Find out next time on Dragon Ball, What If Piccolo Stayed Evil?